We're just trying to get better at the technology around here. 6 o'clock.
Okay, go ahead and call this meeting to order. Shall we do a roll call?
Jeffrey Seckenheim, Mark Thurnauer,
Here.
Mark Haggerty,
Here.
Barry Paterno.
Here.
All right, first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from last month. Any discussion at all?
I have no comments or changes.
No? I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. On to new business. First applicant is 1107 South Fort Thomas Avenue.
Yes, so BF Realty is here. They recently acquired 1107 South Fort Thomas Avenue, which was the original Kaleidoscope building over in our Midway district. They are looking to remove the existing sign that is on the front. If you are familiar with it, it is the Kaleidoscope dance sign that's, I think, from what, the 60s or something, 70s. It's an older sign, and they are replacing it with a black awning on the front, very similar to their current location over in Loveland. We have the representative here to discuss about it. If there are any questions for him, he can also go over the project as well.
Thank you. So my wife and I bought this building about a month ago, and right now we have one office in Loveland. It's the historic part of Loveland, and so we have a similar awning, which is basically a black and white awning. That way we can preserve the historic look of the building. So that's kind of the look we're going for. We're not looking to like stand out as far as like lights and signs. We just want it to look old, like it is, right? Like a historic building. So we really like this historic area. That's what we were looking at when we were looking for buildings. So when this one came up, we jumped on it.
If you wouldn't mind, would you mind saying your name for the,
Yeah, my name's Andrew Frietch.
thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
No.
No. None for me.
Okay, I mean, and all of this, of course, is assuming everything is within compliance with zoning.
Signs, so, yeah.
I think it seems reasonable. I'd make a motion to approve the request as submitted.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alrighty. Up next, we have Dan Gorman, applicant and owner of United Property Group at 18 North Fort Thomas Avenue. He is here tonight about some signage at the historic Highland Theater building, which is located right down the street. Thank you, Dan. If you remember, we originally had a discussion similar about this building not too long ago. Kamal Restaurant, one of the tenants in the front of this building, came before the board for a GROW grant, and one of their touches was on having an outside sign to attract additional people as they're walking or driving down the avenue from what they currently have on the building. And that kind of prompted the discussion with the board, along with bringing in our CT consultant, having discussions about this building, because it's a very unique building, as there are how many tenants in the building, Dan?
Approximately 19.
19 businesses in this building, and you wouldn't really know that from the outside of it. So about how we can bring a little bit of signage to the building, the businesses that are located inside, to the exterior of it. And I will then pass it right off to Dan to go over.
Yeah, so it's been a unique challenge because of the nature of the building being kind of narrow in front compared to how deep and how many floors there are. So there's a lot of tenants inside, and they've expressed interest over the years to be able to have some type of signage on the front. What that's, it's just been really challenging to figure out how to provide signage that is prominent enough that gets them any more exposure than they already have, which is a lobby sign when you walk into the lobby. So, so we had I think that what that's resulted in is a lot of people kind of putting stuff in the windows to let people know that they're in there, which is wasn't that big of a deal when it was just one or two tenants doing it. Now there's more and more tenants doing it, and so and I'm reluctant to restrict that just because, you know, I'm sensitive to the fact that we want people to know that they're in there. So I gave them a couple options. One of them was kind of what I proposed tonight. The other one was a lot of kind of a series of those backlit real estate signs that you can kind of when you go to pass by a real estate office, you can kind of see these signs of like houses that are for sale in the neighborhood or something like that, and they kind of maybe have four of them down by 4 of them across or whatever. And I figured you probably wouldn't like that one as much as the option that I presented, but I wanted at least them to have some input, the tenants, and they all but one of them preferred what I've got for you right there. So really what we're talking about is just trying to, like if you look at the original picture that I just gave you, they used to have these now showing signs out there where they would have the posters about the films that were happening on the inside. So there has been a light fixture that's been added kind of towards the top of where those signs used to be, so that the signs would have to be a little bit compressed, but we would try to duplicate that where it would be a lighted sign that would match the ones that are in the lobby, kind of like a little bit of an orange. So we would take a frame that, like a bulletin board frame, that already has the same color metal as the one in the lobby, and then maybe add a little bit more detailing, like another layer of metal around that to beef it up and make it look more decorative. And then, you know, to be balanced, we'd have to have one on each side, which we would then be splitting up half the tenants on one side and half on the other, but we would give them a little bit more of a bigger plaque that might say, you know, like Suite 301 and yoga, and they would get a couple sentences about what they do. That way, as people are kind of strolling by, they might stop and look at it on, you know, kind of a point that's something that's interesting to look at, and they would kind of see the businesses that are in the building. I think what I'm getting is from some of the tenants is that customers are standing on the sidewalk, kind of wandering around where they are, you know. So I think that might help that out. So open to feedback and comments on this. But that seems to be the only thing that I can do that would give them the exposure they're looking for, with the exception of starting to put a bunch of signs, you know, kind of above the entry door along the whole front of the building or something. So, which is, I don't think anybody would like that. So,
Dan, did you say these will or will not be lit?
they will be lit, yes. They don't have to be lit, but I thought that it would be more. Since we have a light fixture right above each one, it's easier just to drop a wire down and make it so they're lit kind of like they were, you know, back in the day. And then we can or cannot have that little now showing thing, that little strip that's what the lobby signs have when you walk in, and that's what the original ones from the picture I showed you have. But that was a design element I was going to add just to kind of keep in keeping with the old theater, but it actually cuts down on the amount of space we have to advertise businesses, and that's not
issue of this amount of area you have, and that the original ones were bigger, and do you feel like you really need to keep the light fixtures? I mean, is that an important part as far as illuminating the building, and if you were to grow this up to where it just wires right into where those light fixtures are, and you're now showing is essentially illuminated, I mean, would that be beneficial or?
Well, you know, I was thinking about that. I think that maybe the light fixtures were a lot smaller and higher because there was so much illumination from all those lights on this thing that projected out, you know, those hundreds of light bulbs in the Highland sign, that it probably didn't need to have lighting. And so the front of the building is not that lit up now. And so it has kind of 4 matching fixtures.
I see.
And so if you remove 2 of them, it may,
Okay.
it may make it, kind of dim on the front, so.
Mhm. And we discussed this idea before when you were first looking for feedback, and I think this is a good approach to solving the problem. So I don't really have any objection. I just think to the idea of if you needed more space, I think they could be bigger, and it wouldn't bother me any.
You know, I personally like it. I think it's, gives a little bit of throwback, nod to the past. I do like the now showing part of it as well. And as far as the size of the individual signs, I mean, this is for people that are walking on the sidewalk. So obviously you're gonna be able to read it.
Yeah,
You're not gonna be able to read it from a car.
If you were gonna try to make every sign big enough to be read by a car, the whole building would be up.
Yeah, right, that's what signs.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, no, I like it.
I don't really have much other, I suppose for approval, do we need to recognize what the metal is? Do you have what you're assuming, or what your plan is as far as the material? I mean, I can, from what you're showing, it looks good, I just didn't know.
Well, there might be I did send a page of Sam, I'm not sure if it made it in the packet, but I need to order a sign that is already in existence that's weatherproof.
Got
And
it.
so,
Second thing.
yeah, so those are just, I don't know what that would be, an anodized aluminum type of thing probably or something, so.
So it's showing your choices of frame finish from basically anodized aluminum through black bronze. I mean, is it the anodized, that's what you're thinking?
Yeah, what I would try to do is match the ones that are in the lobby, because I'm not really sure if the ones in the lobby used to be outside or not. Those are the huge ones that you see in the picture. They're an identical match to that, and so they either took them from the lobby and put them on the, or from the outside and put them on the inside of it, or they just had 2 extra ones outside. But I'd be trying to match the color and the style of those.
All right.
The background will be black,
Yes.
where the signs are.
That's good. That's great. Anybody like to make a motion? Any additional discussion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the sign as shown in the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Alrighty then, moving right along. Our next applicant is Cincinnati Pergola LLC applicant for representing Darek and Abbey Sanford, owners of 10 Alexander Circle. They are requesting to install a pergola. How are you? To the back of their property on the addition that was built when the houses were being fixed up and sold. So, and I asked them to
Is
do
it
their
correct that this is the house that is the new build?
This is the new build house.
So inside of this project, we're looking to basically solve a problem for the homeowner. They basically have this space above their garage now, behind the home, off the street kind of thing. 2-car garage, it's got a concrete top right now. They're looking to basically make it a cooler space for their kids to play. Right now, it's approximately 140 degrees during a normal summer in terms of the temperature of the roof deck. We've explored changing the roof deck in terms of the material that it's made out of, that kind of thing, in order to create some form of shade. So this product is a very high-end luxury pergola. It's all aluminum, it's powder coated, so it's not going to have an aging issue in terms of becoming an eyesore to a neighbor or anything like that. The real goal is to make this space more usable for the homeowner without changing the aesthetics of it. I've highlighted a couple of pages to look at for you guys, so it kind of gives you an idea of what we're kind of chasing. On page 19 is a very traditional pergola look. That's an option that he has. he actually didn't select that look. He's actually taken it to a point of not having the pergola cuts on the end of it, where it's just a smooth framework that matches the trim on the house. And then on page 36 is more of a photo, it's actually, the photo is more on page 37, of what the outside edge of the pergola would look like in terms of a clean nature. So it's meant to open and close. It's watertight when it closes. The whole point of it is to essentially put lights and different features underneath it so that the family can be out there at night and hang out. Nice quiet setting for them to enjoy.
All right, any questions?
I guess a couple. You say it's black. Is it all black?
This one is, yes. The louvers themselves, which are the part that open and close, are black. A lot of customers will choose multiple different colors where they'll go with that. And like for instance, in my backyard, I have a white roof on mine.
Okay.
And then on the outer portion of it, I put gray. And it's just a clean finish look. But in his case, he wanted black on black.
Okay.
And that accents the rest of the accents with his house.
Then I noticed that the gutters and everything run over towards, I guess, the columns. And then there's a downspout that runs just outside the column, takes the water away.
In his case, this system has an internal gutter system. So if you can imagine the outer face of the beam is essentially a 2x8 made out of aluminum. That system will have a gutter on the inside of it. So when those louvers are closed, it doesn't look like there's anything other than that 2x8 material from the outside looking in.
Okay.
But on the bottom, there's actually a gutter where all that water will go into. And then we take the water and put it inside of one of those posts. So it's an extremely clean look. He's requested that we tie it into an existing gutter on his garage. So it's going to be very flat and smooth in terms of the side that his house is on the outside bend of his road. And so any of it that we would see from the street would be this flat, very clean finish, no protruding things at all.
Okay. And then all of those have planter boxes on the roof, correct?
In his case, he doesn't have any planter boxes.
the planter box?
No, he has a handrail that's made out of wood. It's nothing real fancy. It's more of like a standard deck handrail. I'm honestly trying to convince him to go with something a little more modern looking and we can get approval for that. But I don't think that that's going to fly in this kind of place. So
Okay, which is, it's just regular street pickets.
yeah, it's I think they're like
Top
2x2
rail, bottom
squares,
rail.
top rail, bottom rail. Yeah, we're intending to leave that and tie that into the existing pergola, or the pergola that we'll install.
So the existing corner posts that are there will come out.
Yep,
This
this will go over
this
those.
will take care of it or replace it, and then the railings will go back in.
Yes, I would love to see him, even if he doesn't go with something more modern, which would be like a cable rail, which is our main suggestion in a case like this, that they would replace it with something more of an aluminum handrail where it's a clean finished look that would match the styling of the house.
Those are my questions.
Yeah, you know, often it's really important for us to have a better understanding of kind of the impact of what's being proposed in relationship to the home and its visibility from surrounding areas. I have a pretty good understanding. I'm trying to decipher that from the site plan.
Yeah.
Seeing on Google Street View, you know, which house we're talking about. So again, I will just state that this is the house that is actually the new build in the neighborhood. and not one of the historic homes.
Yep.
And for that matter, I think that, from my perspective, I think some of the expectations of kind of like due diligence of seeing this rendered with the home and all of various lines of sight, which we expect generally, it has been precedent for homes in the area.
Yeah.
I think I can be a little more kind of understanding of not necessarily containing all of those kind of elements because of the fact that it is not necessarily one of the historic homes. And I just make that statement so that it's kind of understood that we're trying to be even treatment for all homes, but there is a bit of an exception, even with the detailing of this new home when it was originally built, was not held to the same principles as the existing properties, because it's not historic.
Right.
And for that matter, you know, I think it's acceptable to me to accept it as it's been presented. I don't know if there's any additional comment from the committee.
You won't see much of that from the street.
I mean, it's in this, again, understanding where the home is located on this, your approach is essentially that this home is straight ahead as you're coming down the drive. And so the back of the home is completely not visible from the street.
That's
Now,
absolutely the case.
I mean, it is visible through other people's backyards, but again, where is the limit of exposure? I don't know. Looking from another road through the backs of other yards towards the back of this yard is really, I mean, you can't, at some point you have to have a line that is considered your own private space,
Right.
not the street view. So but that's how I interpret it. Do we have any proposals?
You want to try to make a motion now, or?
I guess I should ask for,
Is it the public and
so I'm gonna say, do we open this to public comment?
You can open it to
I
public
just have a
comment.
question. Sharon MacKnight,
Your address real quick.
62 Miller Lane.
Okay, we won't have you come up to the podium.
Okay,
Hold on just one second.
Okay,
You
thank
put
you.
5 minutes up, just.
I won't be 5 minutes. You're saying the way you're interpreting it, what are you interpreting that from? That's the historic stuff, what are you interpreting that from? Just because it's a new build? I thought the whole historic thing was the whole look of that area. So I'm not an expert
Okay.
at all, but I was.
Fair. When
Right.
the original homes were built, or sorry, when the development was done, there were guidelines of historic preservation that was related to historic homes. This particular home was a completely new ground-up structure.
Yes. Mhm.
And therefore, many of the elements of the design principles didn't apply because they applied to the preservation of a historic structure. So, and again, I don't have the images of the property in this submission, but if you're familiar with the location, I mean, there's just a number of things about its design, which are its own design. I mean, it has some compatibility with its neighbors because it is of a similar scale, and it's of a brick of a similar color, but it didn't have to meet similarity in window detailing, in roof detailing, and the treatment of the porch in a variety of different ways because of being considered new construction.
Well, from the old photos, because my husband's a buff with those old photos, they tried to, there was an image of a house that used to sit there, and they tried to replicate that. You know, it's not like they just made that image up, right? I mean, there was an image that sat there years ago that they tried to make that as similar as possible too. Did they not?
To be perfectly honest, I had not been aware that that was at all a consideration. That doesn't mean that that may not have been true. I
Yeah.
just simply had not heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a house that used to sit there that looked similar to years and years ago. I think that's what they were basing it on, but I can't swear to that either.
Every house that's back there, if you walked into it being blind for the area, which I was when I first showed up, they all are absolutely gorgeous, and you don't know until you get right on them that one is brand spanking new, and the ones that are in the back end of the neighborhood are, I'm assuming, over 100 years old. They're absolutely gorgeous still, until you start looking at the brick where it's just a little bit more worn.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, it looks just like the.
Yeah, I
rest
think
of the
that's what
back
they're
end.
trying to.
And I
keep
can,
it in with the-
and I, if I may, real
Sure.
quick, I will intervene. There was originally a house right there. It used to be the officer's office, I believe, is what was the official term for it. And it was, of course, due to historical standards and all that stuff, you can't build a building back to what it originally looked like. It does have very similar features to what the original one would have looked like. There are some changes that, of course, that were made to it. Like originally it had a beautiful balcony on the front of it that was made out of the same brick tone as it is. That's not the case for this one, for that. So, and it has a bigger front porch now on the front of it. So it's based off of original designs and all that stuff, but of course, due to historical reasons and stuff, it has to be a little bit different from the original.
Okay, that's
Okay.
news to me. I mean, it's completely contemporary in comparison to its neighbors. I mean, it has
Mhm.
diagonal square windows in a stacked pattern that's not historical. That wasn't necessarily brought up as a concern. So it's just a different animal. But
Makes sense.
yes,
Melanie Powers, 13 Pearson Street. First of all, I want to completely disagree with you about the sideline. I walked down there today. It's because of how the sidewalk goes down, it will be completely visible, and especially if it's going to have lights on it. And yes, it is new, so there is some, I wouldn't say diminution of some of the specifications that are very clear in the MOA, the Memorandum of Agreement from the VA about all of the homes there, including what goes on in the back and how there is a general thing to be maintained, as Chairman MacKnight just said, about all of the homes. Otherwise, why don't you could put a Frank Lloyd Wright house in there. The MOA, again, is there. It's in place. And also the 2000, and I believe it's 2, Fort Thomas guidelines also are very clear about something like this, which it doesn't follow the MOA and it doesn't follow what we already have in place about additions, changes to the exterior that are visible. This isn't a small thing, I mean, size-wise for this. And I think that this needs to be reevaluated. I really want all of you, before you make a decision, to walk by. It will be highly visible, particularly if it had lights on it.
So the lights are down lights. They're
It's-
not meant to help the.
It will be visible because it will be at your sight line. And I noticed that today as you come, where that garage is, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's going to be right there, so the lights will be above. And the last comment that I want to make, I'm sorry, it's editorial, I guess you could call it personal, but I think it's time for somebody to say this, because there are things right now on Alexander Circle that are against the MOA. And the comment that I want to say is everyone that bought in that development knew about the MOA, they were given the MOA, and they knew they were buying into this very historic area. And if they didn't know, I don't know how, and they should have been told about the 2002 guidelines that are already in place. And again, address when you're going to put something new in, whether it's completely new, a rebuild, or restoration. In this case, it's not a restoration because the home is new. And I get that. And this is also, again, addressed. It's very clear we have this in place. So I would refer you back to what has been the guidelines here, design guidelines from Fort Thomas since 2002. And I think you will find that as it's described, I haven't seen this, it does not adhere to those. And I think that we should be doing everything we can to maintain the history of this area. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you for your comments. I think you've raised a number of valid concerns, and I will be perfectly honest, I don't feel that I can necessarily respond to those intelligently. We've received this sort of preliminarily with only about a day's time, and I feel like as you brought up these points in comparison to the existing MOA, I haven't had a chance to compare this to what was laid in place to give it that kind of more scrutiny. So based on that, I feel it appropriate to consider tabling it until we've had more time to compare it to those guidelines.
Would it help if I did a full virtual tour from the outside of the house all the way around with this having been digitally put into it?
I mean, that would certainly help.
Okay.
But so, you know, if we do go with putting it aside for a month to be able to more appropriately kind of review this in comparison to the guidelines, then providing additional documentation that actually shows this with the structure and not just sketched on the GIS site plan,
Yeah.
would definitely help to
Please
provide
please
more.
walk down there.
Okay. I do appreciate that, and we were just looking at an image, and you're right, it is more visible coming from the street than I would have expected. In my mind, it was more straight ahead, and it is kind of slightly to the left. Any additional comments?
No, the only thing I'd like to ask the lady about is, what is the MOA?
The memorandum of agreement, that, I'd be happy, I have it on my desktop. If you will give me your email, I'll be happy to.
Talking about this, the standards, design standards for
I'm sorry, yeah, I don't know what you,
architectural guidelines, sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm familiar with them if I see them.
Because I've never seen the leases or the,
Sorry.
this is what was given to us at the board. This is what we were charged to
Yeah,
review.
I believe this is it. Listen, I'm happy to send it to you along with the 2002. I have it on my desktop.
Okay.
In fact, I was really surprised the first time I saw it, how
Well,
specific
it
it was.
is interesting because it does differentiate, even in this document, about the original buildings and new construction.
Right.
As so do they do in the National Historic Register documents.
The Department of the Interior exists also. I can also send you those, but the ones that are in place legally right now is the design guidelines done in 2002 for Fort Thomas. They clearly were based on both the Kentucky Heritage Council and the Department of the Interior, but in my opinion, they're actually better because they took a lot of extraneous and technical vernacular out of them, and they're really well done and clear. And again, the preference is even with newer buildings, particularly in a historic area, what your goal is, which is to use a plain word, match, you know, so it doesn't stand out.
I kind of disagree because this is directly out of the National Register book. Sorry, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but their standards. And it basically says new additions and related new construction that meet the standards can be any architectural style, traditional, contemporary, or a simplified version of the historic building. However, there must be a balance between the differentiation and compatibility to maintain the historic character and the identity of the building being enlarged. So they obviously.
I believe that that's when they're talking about enlargement, and if you read further, and again, it's in the 2002 document.
That's the design review guide.
Right, right,
That
and
she's
they,
referring to that you guys should.
yeah, doesn't it come from your?
This document, then.
No, that's the MOA.
Okay, well, the key to me really is that these buildings have already been added to, so which means we're not trying to necessarily do a historic restoration.
Correct.
We did not try to restore them back to their original look, which some buildings are done that way. They are kept at the original thing. We were allowed to add to them with garages and so on, so that they were more functional, which is covered in the standards as well, that you're allowed to do that. My take on all of that is that, yes, these homeowners do have some rights, property rights, to do things to improve their home, even on the outside. Now, it is very limited on the front, absolutely. If it's the front of the house, you're not going to be able to take off a porch and put on something different. But if it's in the back of the buildings and things like that, I think there's a lot more leeway and a lot more acceptance, not only in, I think, our architectural guidelines for the property, but also in the National Historic Preservation documents.
Do you guys have a historian preservationist that you talk to about these when you make the decision? I mean, or do you get training or updates on that? I'm just curious.
Not exactly, no, we didn't have anybody come in directly for the historic nature of these buildings, a true
That would
historian.
be a good idea.
Matt Kramer, I believe, is working on that. He
Oh,
was.
is he? Oh,
He
okay.
was.
Oh, because I think that would be great.
Have you heard
Yeah, I
any?
think this is another example of when, even if they're not continually in a chaired position, on any particular commission or board, that at least on an as-needed basis, since they are, well-trained and historic preservationists, that they be consulted on this, because there is some guidelines. For instance, I disagree with your interpretation. And so I think it's always good to have expert opinion. And again, I can send you those specific areas. The other thing I want to remind you of too that I brought up, which is the sight lines. And the sight lines on this will be very visible, very visible.
It is visible, I certainly would not disagree with that, but I don't think it's very visible. It is in the back.
I would like
of these
to invite you
buildings.
to my house on Pearson Street, and we will walk down together.
It would be a fair statement to say it is equally visible as the garage, which is on the same structure in the same
Right.
location.
Exactly.
He's also got a shed behind the garage.
And that shed,
Yeah,
that plastic shed back there that I know for sure is against the MOA.
Oh, it's not plastic. It is,
Well,
it's a legit built into the existing.
it doesn't fit.
Garage
It looks
space
like
as
it came
well.
from Home Depot.
That's rough.
Okay, I'm sorry. Again, please come with me.
If I may bring the room back.
We can
forward real quick.
go down there and
So,
look at it.
There's only so many, we could continue going back and forth, but I think we got at it both ways. So, Mr. Acting Chairman.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I don't
I
mean to be-
propose that we table it till next month, where you can present to the board with some imagery that helps to demonstrate its visibility. And as you offered, if you can provide that in either still images, if you have the technology to be able to prepare some kind of animation, that would be fantastic. I think that would be a great way to demonstrate this, and it gives our team here more time to compare what is being presented to the documents that were a part of this when it was built.
That sounds good. Is this available to
Yes.
put on your projector? Cool. I'll bring it up, we'll show up for you guys. Love that.
Okay.
should make that an official motion.
To table? I'd like to make a motion to table the application till next month.
We have a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any new business?
There's none to report.
All right, if not, then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're done.
What is it?
I started at 6.
I know.
Okay, I can do it right now.